Hello and welcome to our live coverage of SpaceX Demo-2 mission. We are excited to be bringing you live coverage here from SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. My name is Kate Tice, a senior certification engineer, and it has been an exciting 24 hours. Backtracking a little bit, Bob and Doug launched to the International Space Station just 2 months ago, and earlier today departed from the International Space Station and began their journey home. They've completed all of the departure burns, and they are now awake and ready to begin the day. So a couple of events that we have upcoming at 10:48 a.m. Pacific time, we will do what's known as slew to trunk jettison attitude. And that's basically positioning the vehicle in its proper place in order to jettison that trunk. We want to expose the heat shield in preparation for capsule reentry. So we will separate from the trunk, and that will be occurring at 10:51 a.m. Pacific time. We will then slew or maneuver to deorbit burn attitude, and that deorbit burn is what is going to really place Dragon on its final trajectory back to Earth.
Yeah, once the engines fire on that deorbit burn, Dragon is committed to returning home, and that's what really adjusts their orbit to line them up straight with that splashdown zone right off the coast of Pensacola. And so we are expecting that deorbit burn. Times have stayed pretty much solid throughout all the different burns that Dragon has done since it's left the International Space Station. We're expecting that burn at about 10:56 a.m. Pacific, 17:56 GMT. We'll try to give you guys a couple of split times here. That deorbit burn is expected to last 11 minutes and 22 seconds. It's executed primarily using the forward bulkhead thrusters on the very top of Dragon. There are 4 of them, and it'll alternate between a couple of them during that deorbit burn. Also using a number of the 12 service section Dracos just to maintain the proper attitude while those engines are firing. It's the longest burn of Dragon's trip home, and again, that's what really commits them. Once that deorbit burn is complete, they are re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. So after the completion of that deorbit burn, Dragon will look to close its nose cone. That's targeted to come at about 11 a.m. Pacific time, or 18:11 GMT. And closing up that nose cone is just done to protect the very top of Dragon, where you have the docking ring, some guidance, navigation, and control sensors, and those 4 forward bulkhead thrusters from the heat of reentry. This just helps to aid in Dragon's reusability. This capsule in particular, already slated for another mission. It's going to be flying the Crew 2 crew next year. After we really start to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere, things will start heating up. The Dragon capsule experiencing up to 3,500 degrees during this re-entry, and that'll build up a plasma around the spacecraft, and that'll result in what we call a comms blackout. There will be about 6 minutes where we can't talk to the crew on board Dragon, and we can't get any telemetry or data from the vehicle, and we can't send any commands from the ground. This is expected, and this is something that's common in spacecraft. When you're generating that much heat, it tends to interfere with those sensitive radio systems. So we're expecting that to last about 6 minutes. Dragon will continue flying itself using its 3 flight computers and the Draco thrusters on the service section to maintain a very precise attitude as it continues towards its splashdown point off the coast of Pensacola. In the middle of that comms blackout, we'll have something called entry interface. That's when Dragon's low enough in the atmosphere now that it's experiencing aerodynamic effects now. When you're flying around in the gravity of space, you don't experience lift, drag, things like that you now have to worry about once you're re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. And once they get low enough, it's time for parachutes.
Yeah, so first we're going to deploy our drogue parachutes. These are intended to initially slow the vehicle down, but also stabilize it so that just 1 minute after those drogue chutes deploy, we'll then release the main parachutes. So we'll have 4 beautiful orange and white parachutes, and those will also continue to slow the capsule down significantly, actually just to a mere 15 or 16 miles per hour as it splashes down in the Gulf of Mexico. That splashdown will occur at 11:48 a.m. Pacific or 18:48 UTC, and we're coming up to that here in a few hours, so be sure to stick with us as we will be bringing you coverage all the way through that splashdown, in addition to the recovery operations, which, you know, if for our longtime SpaceX fans, the recovery team is really one that we haven't had a chance to showcase really since the last Demo-1 mission, and so it's really great to see this new team in action and being able to perform live all of the stuff that they've been rehearsing with Bob and Doug for the last couple of years.
Yeah, we basically did a test run of this flight a little over a year ago at Demo-1. And Kate and I were here to do the splashdown for that one.
Another early morning.
Another very early morning. Things looked a little bit different. SpaceX actually had both of its recovery ships out in the landing zone for DM1, both the Go Navigator and the Go Searcher. For actual operations, though, those boats are split up. The Go Navigator stays in the Gulf of Mexico, at least for right now, and it's responsible for any splashdowns at the 4 sites in the Gulf. Those are Pensacola, Panama City, Tallahassee, and Tampa. And then the Go Searcher stays over on the Atlantic side for anything in the Cape, Jacksonville, and the one that I'm forgetting. I'll look it up. But those 2 boats are split up. At any time, one of them will be primed for the recovery operations. And there are about a little over 40 people on that ship to actually recover the Dragon spacecraft and Bob and Doug. And it's a SpaceX and NASA joint team with a lot of different personnel on board. You have people that are experts in the Dragon capsule itself. You have the ship's crew. You have a number of people from the medical community, doctors from both SpaceX and flight surgeons from NASA, nurses, and then you also have cargo specialists on board as Dragon's bringing some cargo home.
Yeah. So if you followed our missions to the International Space Station previously, you might hear us refer to as the maneuvering of Dragon around the station as a carefully choreographed dance. The recovery operations are just like that as well. Whenever it comes to recovering the crew, safety is the #1 priority for not only the astronauts, but the recovery team and all individuals on board that recovery ship as well. So while there are 40 or so people on board, there definitely won't be 40 people on deck. It'll be a strict limitation to the personnel that are in the active recovery operations that will be on the deck, on the recovery deck of the ship as the Dragon capsule is being lifted out of the water and into the nest. So I'm really excited to be able to see that firsthand. We will be, like I said before, we'll be bringing you that coverage all the way through. And after Bob and Doug are brought out of the Dragon capsule. So once the Dragon capsule is placed onto the recovery vessel in that nest, our flight surgeon will pop his head in and make sure that everything is looking and feeling good with our astronauts, our space dads, and we will then have them exit the capsule through that side hatch. We will wheel them into the medical tents, and they'll then get their in-depth medical review with the medical team, and at which point they will then hop on a helicopter and head back to Texas.
Yeah, and I mean, all of that is supposed to unfold in just about an hour following splashdown. Within minutes of Dragon hitting down in the water, a lot of things will happen simultaneously. The Dragon capsule itself takes a number of automatic steps as soon as it detects that it's splashed down. One of the first things that it does will be to detach the parachutes. As once you're splashed down, you don't need them to slow you down anymore, obviously. And you don't want them dragging you through the water. So Dragon will automatically cut those main parachutes and they'll be sitting there floating in the water. That's also one of the actions the crew can take if they realize that the parachutes haven't detached. They have a hardwired button right there on their control panel to release those parachutes. Within the first 2 minutes of splashdown, the teams will get the go to proceed in closer. The main recovery ship will be about 3 nautical miles away or so. And it'll deploy 2 fast boats that'll get to the capsule much quicker within just those 2 minutes after getting the go. The first boat will move in and do a sniff check around the Dragon capsule, checking for any vapors of hypergolic fuels used to power the Draco thrusters on board the vehicle. Once they can verify that it's safe to approach, they can move in. As Kate was talking about, someone will climb up on the Dragon and get it rigged. The second fast boat is basically a backup for everything that the first boat's doing, and they're also responsible for gathering those parachutes up out of the water. and then it'll take about 30 minutes until the main recovery vessel gets there, and then it's time to lift it up out of the water.
Yeah, so at that point, the capsule will be set onto the platform of the recovery ship, and then we'll, like I said before, our flight surgeon will do those initial checkouts. We'll pull Bob and Doug out, and then they will go into the medical tent. So like I said, that's all going to happen within about 60 minutes is our designated timeline for those operations. And we're really excited to see all of that unfold. It has been a very long morning, night so far. We've been broadcasting for a few hours now, and I don't know about you, but I'm starting, the more that we talk about the parachute deployment and just recalling what that looked and felt like for the Demo-1 broadcast, I'm getting really rejuvenated and really excited to see that with our space dads on board.
And we should be able to show you a lot of the same things you saw for Demo-1. Again, it's a little bit different, as for Demo-1, we had 2 ships out there in the same recovery zone. So we were able to have some of our camera assets, things like that, on the other ship. Now it's all on one, but one of the first views we should be able to see will be from a NASA high-altitude research plane, the WB-57. It's going to be once again flying in the area of Splashdown. For Demo-1, it was able to get us an infrared view of the capsule actually during that re-entry period, so when it was still glowing very brightly on the infrared as it was still generating and dissipating a lot of the heat of re-entry. Able to see the drogue chute deploys and then the main deploys, and then we'll have some cameras actually down on the boat on the water, hopefully getting us some great views of Dragon as it descends under those parachutes. So we are looking forward to that. Again, we have about 6 hours or so until the actual splashdown. We're targeting that at 11:48 a.m. Pacific, and I want to make sure 18:48 GMT.
Yeah. So if you're just joining us, Bob and Doug have completed their 8-hour sleep shift. They woke up about an hour ago, an hour and 20 minutes or so. They had a really nice greeting from their sons telling them to wake up, wake up, wake up. And they're now in their post-sleep phase where they're having their breakfast. They received their, basically their informational update from the core here at SpaceX Mission Control in Hawthorne, California. And so far, everything is looking great, or green, as we say, for today's recovery operations.
Yeah. And so as we continue to monitor the operations today, we do want to keep taking your questions on social media. So we've got a couple that we're going to get through right now. Remember, if you want to ask us a question, get on Twitter, use the hashtag AskNASA. First one comes from Jeff, who wants to know, is Dragon naturally buoyant, or would the ship sink if they open the capsule in the water? It would not. Dragon is designed to stay afloat for at least 24 hours. If not beyond that, but the requirement was just to make sure for 24 hours. It has a ballast system to make sure it's upright in the water following the splashdown. And if the crew had to get out of the capsule before they get on the boat, they have practiced those operations as well. One of the things that we do so often with spaceflight is practice for when things don't go according to plan. We do it through simulations, through practices in the field, through test flights like we did last year. So Dragon, capable of getting the crew out of the water, but that's not our nominal plan. The plan is to get them out of the capsule once it's already on the ship. Much more stable environment, a lot easier. You're not bobbing around in the ocean by that point.
Yeah, absolutely. So our next question coming to us from tardigrads. The question is, how fast will the capsule initially enter our atmosphere?
Test flights like we did last year.
The capsule, whenever it departs the International Space Station, initially is going 17,500 miles per hour, thereabouts. Whenever it is re-entering our atmosphere, it will actually be slowing down to about 350 miles per hour, partially due to the atmosphere itself. That friction building up on the exterior of the capsule will bring the exterior temperature to about 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit. So that is an indication that the atmosphere and the oxygen is actually impacting the capsule and slowing it down. We also have, like we mentioned before, the parachutes that will also further decelerate the vehicle from 350 miles per hour to a mere 15, 16 miles per hour whenever it touches down on the ocean floor.
All right, our next question comes from Arash, who wanted to know, is Crew Dragon Endeavour reusable? It is
exactly what's going to happen, but we hope to see it land. It will be landing off to the right.
It's going to be flying the crew to
so it will be
which
pretty
we're targeting for some time next year.
But
it'll be another international contingent heading up to the International Space Station.
Amazing sight to
two
see.
NASA astronauts on board.
Regardless
Shane
of what happens
who's going to be making another long-duration stay on board the International
thank you,
Space
Tom.
Station.
Thanks
and
very
Megan
much for
MacArthur,
that. And
who had previously flown on
as I'm
STS
thinking about
125,
this
where
now,
she did
we
all
do
of the
have the
robotics
capability,
the last
and
time
we'll
we
be more than
repaired the
happy
Hubble
to
Space
answer
Telescope.
questions that you
They're
all.
going to be joined by 2 international crew members as well.
Indeed. So our next question comes to.
I was going to say I can say who they are. Real quick.
Go for it.
it'll be European Space Agency astronaut Thomas Pesquet and Japanese astronaut Aki Hoshide. So another international crew heading up on a Dragon. Our first international crew is actually slated to launch no later.
If you'd use the hashtag, @lab Padre.
So again, we are taking your questions through the hashtag
#AskNASA
on Twitter. Our next question comes to us from Suraj. The question is, why is the nose cone hatch still open? Great question, also very observant. That nose cone is currently still open because underneath it rest the 4 forward bulkhead thrusters, basically meaning those Draco engines that sit at the top of the Dragon capsule. We will be utilizing those to perform the deorbit burn in order to place Dragon on its final trajectory back to Earth. So we can't close the nose cone until we're done using those Draco thrusters,
and also those of you who are contributing, and as your contributions come in, we'll also be collecting those. The chat moves so fast,
and then we will close and lock the nose cone in preparation for re-entry.
Our thanks and our heartfelt recognition for your contributions as they come
for
in.
A graphic. The next time you show the orbit map, can you explain
anything
what
helps
and where things
in terms of keeping the stream running, keeping it in tip-top shape,
pull up the ground track real
cameras,
quick,
better streaming,
what you'll see
and also
is
just
pretty much
the
2
internet
lines.
bills for Lab
Dragon
you got to remember, it's all out of
is
pocket
on that dot right in the middle of your screen, so it looks like it just passed over Greece. And
make sure to hit that like button, subscribe button
about
too.
to head out over Eastern
Just
Europe,
a couple of quick
Central
shout-outs
Russia,
for some of them
eventually
out there.
Central
David
China.
Shelton.
Those lines are
Behnken
Dragon's
come through
current
earlier.
orbit. So if you trace the line from the right of Dragon and continue,
thank you very much.
you'll see it
Also, there's
eventually
another one from
meets
Brazil.
up on the
Hello,
other side of
Brazil.
the
I'm sorry I
Earth,
didn't
and then
catch
it
your name
stops.
earlier.
If you watch the point where it stops, that'll continue
howdy
to
to
fill
Brazil
in
out there.
as their orbit
Gary McDermott,
continues to go. So this is essentially showing about 2 orbits of planet Earth.
Chris
and
Brown.
Your next question might be, why is it when you line is Dragon kind of flying all over the place? And that's because the map is
the last one that I can
spread
see is
flat.
it went away.
If you were to actually look at Dragon's orbit on a globe of Earth, it would look like a straight line. But the Earth continues to revolve underneath Dragon.
The chat's
so every time
going
it
at light speed.
Of the
so
Earth,
we'll do what we can into the thanking people for their memberships and their donations. But if it's flying that quick, it can get hard, but we're doing best.